At 2:47 a.m., October 10th, 2025, the Kakhovka Bridge in southern Ukraine erupted. 18 drones and 6 river mines raced toward a 7-mile Russian convoy. A rolling fortress of fuel trucks, armored carriers and main battle tanks, hauling 3.5 million gallons of fuel and enough ammunition for 15,000 troops. This convoy wasn't ordinary. It was Moscow's bargaining chip, meant to pressure Ukraine and the United States just hours before the Geneva Peace Summit. A show of strength disguised as diplomacy. Will Ukraine stop Moscow's plan before the summit, or walk into Russia's trap and vanish from the table forever? Join me. Let's step into the battle and find out. At 2:47 a.m., on the Kakhovka Bridge over the Dnipro River, a Russian staff officer is savoring the finest moment of his life. He and his comrades genuinely believe their 7-mile convoy, a steel serpent of 420 vehicles, hauling over 3.5 million gallons of fuel and enough ammunition for 15,000 troops, is unstoppable. 40 main battle tanks, a hard fist of steel and 2 armored echelons led the convoy, their heavy tracks a constant thrum on the bridge deck. High above, the Dnipro radar swept the sky. On the ground, Panzer S-1 batteries stood guard like watchful sentinels. On paper, the convoy was invincible, a fortress on wheels. This isn't a supply run. It's Moscow's golden bargaining chip for the Geneva Peace Conference, a show of power meant to buy back leverage at the negotiation table. A weapon dressed as diplomacy, the Kremlin planned to buy leverage with firepower to prove it could still dictate peace through strength. Ukraine saw it differently. To them, every truck crossing that bridge was another bullet aimed at their future. If the convoy reached the East Bank, Moscow would control the talks before they began. Kiev made its choice: destroy the convoy and the illusion of peace with it. And while the Russian army basks in its own confidence, death is already waiting beneath their wheels. Hit subscribe now, turn on notifications, and join me as we step into the most intense moments of this operation, where every decision made in the dark could shake the world above it. While Moscow's convoy thunders proudly across the bridge, the real trap waits below. Silent, invisible, patient. Bolted to the cold underbelly of the Kakhovka Bridge were 18 Kajak Reboth FPV drones, disguised as rusted maintenance gear. Each cost barely $600, less than a Russian officer's monthly fuel allowance. Yet together, they carried enough explosive force to fracture 4,000 tons of reinforced steel. For 72 hours, they had waited in total silence, running on deep sleep protocols that needed no GPS, no pilot, no radio signal. They were ghosts listening for a single encrypted pulse, their digital heartbeat. And deeper still, buried in the river's muddy floor, 6 Shchit-42 magnetic naval mines slept beneath the bridge's main pillars. They were set to trigger only after the drone struck, designed to amplify the blast into a shockwave powerful enough to shatter reinforced concrete at 5,000 psi. Above them, Russia's Dnipro radar swept the skies, searching for drones that didn't exist. For 72 hours, the bridge was a stage, and the actors were already in place. No alarms, no warnings, just $10,000 worth of silent machines waiting to destroy a billion-dollar symbol of Russian pride. The Russians looked upward for threats. The danger, however, was breathing below them. What would you have done if you were in Kiev's place? Waited for diplomacy or pulled the trigger first? Comment your answer below and let me know what side you'd choose. At 3:02 a.m., the bridge began to tremble. The Russian convoy, 7 miles long, 420 vehicles deep, had reached the halfway point. 12,000 tons of steel and fuel groaned against the structure's spine. Then, just as Ukrainian AI had predicted 3 days earlier, the column began to unravel. A dozen Kamaz fuel trucks in the center started to wobble. Their cheap synthetic rubber tires, made under wartime shortages, could not withstand the friction of the 200-mile approach. Within minutes, 6 tires exploded almost simultaneously, followed by a domino chain of blowouts. The bangs cracked like gunfire. Sparks scattered across the deck. Minutes later, 6 vehicles stalled mid-span, blocking the bridge and trapping more than 400 others in a choking snarl. On paper, it was a minor inconvenience. In reality, It was the perfect kill zone. Armored columns behind them ground to a smoky halt. Tanks stopped with their tracks half on the deck, turning the bridge into an iron bottleneck and magnifying the kill zone. 12 kilometers away, inside a camouflaged Ukrainian command bunker, a lone operator watched thermal imagery. Every vehicle glowed bright on his screen, a line of targets ready to ignite. He exhaled, placed his hand on the keyboard, and pressed a single key. A single millisecond encrypted pulse shot through the air, invisible, silent, unstoppable. Beneath the bridge, 18 Kajak drones woke. Their dull green LEDs blinked on, one by one, like ghosts opening their eyes. Each drone linked to its onboard AI and used LiDAR to map the underbelly in real time, making hundreds of micro-adjustments per second. They split into 3 attack cells. Cell 1, 8 drones, locked on the ammunition trucks at the center. Cell 2, 6 drones, tracked the unarmored fuel tankers. Cell 3, 4 drones, moved to strike command and communications vehicles near the front. Their brushless motors spooled to 9,000 RPM, barely louder than a mosquito. To the Russian radars above, the air was empty. To the river below, it was alive. For the next 47 seconds, the swarm moved as one organism, gliding beneath the bridge at barely 3 feet above the waterline, threading through girders, cables, and shadow. Up above, soldiers smoked and joked about reaching camp by dawn. Down below, a $10,000 swarm was hunting $500 million worth of steel. At 3:27 a.m., inside a Panzer S-1 command truck near the convoy's front, Lieutenant Sergei Malenkov, 27 years old, noticed something strange on his radar screen. A faint ripple of static, barely visible. 99 times out of 100, it was meaningless. This time, it wasn't. Acting on instinct, he overrode his captain's orders and switched to active radar pulse mode, flooding the space beneath the bridge with a concentrated electromagnetic sweep. For half a second, his monitor lit up like a Christmas tree. Targets multiple, moving, close. He didn't wait for clearance. He slammed the launch button. A 57E-6 missile, worth $150,000, screamed into the dark and struck a $50 Ukrainian decoy drone drifting just below the bridge's underbelly. The explosion shattered the river's silence, blasting a geyser of fire and water into the sky. It accomplished nothing, except to wake everyone up. Instantly, the entire 420 vehicle convoy erupted in panic. Soldiers shouted over radios, engines roared, and drivers hit their brakes at once, slamming trucks into each other. The bridge's center became a snarl of smoke and steel. One truck caught fire, another tipped sideways, blocking both lanes. In the chaos, the Russians lost their greatest weapon, discipline. And that's when the Ukrainian AI made its move. Beneath the bridge, 17 surviving Kajak drones changed formation. They executed a beam maneuver flight pattern, turning perfectly perpendicular to the Panzer's radar dish. To the system's algorithms, they vanished, their movement absorbed into the static clutter of the bridge's metal supports. Then one drone near the front activated its X-band jammer, a weapon no larger than a soda can. The effect was instantaneous. Inside the Panzer's control truck, every screen went white, as if a flashbang had gone off inside the operator's eyes. Lieutenant Malenkov screamed for visual contact, but there was none. The air was empty, the radar was blind, the enemy was everywhere. Above, Russian gunners fired wildly into the fog. Tracers, flares, even grenades, each shot betraying their panic. Below, the Ukrainian drones moved like ghosts, gliding inches above the waterline. Invisible, untouchable. Tank crews, blinded by smoke, swung main guns and coaxial MGs toward the riverbank in frantic attempts to sweep away anything moving near the deck. Rounds thumping into girders, adding to the chaos. A $25 billion air defense network was now fighting shadows and losing. The lieutenant, still blinded by the static, whispered one line, "They're under us." But it was already too late. The ghosts had moved, and they were about to strike back. At 3:36 a.m., while the Kharkovka bridge roared with confusion, the order came down from Moscow's Southern Command. Activate the A-50. At 30,000 feet, the A-50U mainstay came alive. Its Schmel-M radar swept the river valley with surgical precision, a system capable of tracking hundreds of targets simultaneously and detecting objects the size of drones from well over 100 miles. It cut through fog and interference like a blade and instantly exposed what ground radars could not. 17 small heat signatures clustered beneath the bridge's steel frame, moving in perfect formation just 3 feet above the water. A data stream flashed to a nearby S-400 missile battery 50 miles east of Novokharkovka. Target verified. Trajectory locked. The battery's computers didn't hesitate. A pair of 48 N6DM hypersonic interceptors, each worth roughly $3 million, ignited and skyward at Mach 12. The concussion from mid-air detonations rolled across the deck. Light armor and several tanks tripped fire suppression systems as superheated shrapnel rained down. Down below, the Ukrainian AI registered the threat. At that speed, they had less than 5 seconds before impact. But the Kajak swarm was not built to panic. It was built to adapt. Protocol Omega-7 engaged. Each drone unspooled a 100-foot fiber optic tow line, at the end of which dangled a small cylindrical ALE-50 decoy. It was no simple flare. It sampled the S-400 seeker and broadcasted back an amplified echo, a signature 100 times larger than the drone itself. The missile seekers found the lie irresistible. The sky split open. One by one, the hypersonics twisted mid-course, tearing after the Phantom returns. At Mach 12, one interceptor detonated in mid-air in a blinding flash, vaporizing a shockwave that boiled nearly 2 million gallons of river water in an instant. The concussion rolled across the Dnipro Valley, setting off car alarms in Kherson and shattering windows up to 10 miles away. For a breath, it looked like a sunrise blooming at midnight. From the A-50's cockpit, the Russian operators cheered for 3 seconds until the radar feed updated. All 17 drones were still there, untouched. Advancing. The celebration turned to disbelief. They had just spent $6 million in missiles to destroy a $200 decoy. And worse, the enormous fireball from the failed strike now burned across the night sky like a beacon. Every radar in the region turned upward, chasing ghosts. Beneath them, in the chaos of radio silence, the Ukrainian swarm repositioned. Their AI transmitted a single instruction to every unit: prepare for final strike coordinates. While Russia hunted the heavens for victory, Ukraine was already waiting, deep under the bridge, ready to finish it. At 3:49 a.m., the night over the Dnipro River turned to fire. The air reeked of burning fuel and ionized metal from the destroyed S-400 missiles. Across the Kakhovka Bridge, 420 Russian vehicles, stretched 7 miles long, sat motionless, trapped in a web of their own confusion. In Moscow's command room, officers believed the danger had passed. In reality, it had only just begun. On the Ukrainian operator's screen, a single word appeared: execute. Within a heartbeat, 17 Kajak rewrote drones synchronized. Their brushless motors screamed to life, blades spinning at 9,000 revolutions per minute. Then, like predators breaking from camouflage, they burst upward from beneath the bridge. They didn't target soldiers. They didn't target vehicles. They aimed for the bridge's spinal columns, the massive concrete beams bearing the entire weight of Russia's southern supply line. Each drone carried a 7-pound shaped charge warhead, engineered to pierce reinforced concrete like paper. The first detonation came 2.3 seconds later, followed by 17 more in perfect sequence. The river turned white with light. Each warhead punched through 2 feet of concrete before exploding, releasing a 5,000 psi shockwave that ricocheted between the water and the bridge's underside. The sound was indescribable, a deep, rolling growl that tore the night in half. Then, as planned, the 6 Shit-42 underwater mines activated. The dual blast created a compression chamber beneath the bridge, doubling the pressure and multiplying the destruction. The combined force tore through the pillars from within, snapping 12 support columns like twigs. For 1.3 seconds, the bridge held, defying gravity, as if refusing to die. Then it shattered. The pillars collapsed inward. The deck plates twisted like molten ribbons. Sections of steel and concrete weighing over 1,200 tons plunged into the river. Several tanks slid after the collapsing deck, their tracks scraping sparks as they fell. One detonated mid-air, its turret flung into the river like a comet of fire, vanishing beneath the smoke. 28 ammunition trucks ignited in a chain reaction, releasing an explosion equal to 400 tons of TNT. The fireball rose 1,200 feet into the sky, visible from both Kherson and Zaporizhia. Shockwaves shattered windows 40 miles away. The bridge's skeletal frame bent downward and vanished into the inferno below. The Kharkovka Bridge, once a 7-mile monument of Russian engineering, was gone in 6 seconds. On the riverbanks, Russian soldiers stumbled, blinded, deafened, as flaming debris rained around them. In the Ukrainian command post, seismic monitors spiked off the scale. In less than 5 minutes, a bridge that had stood for 60 years and a convoy worth $500 million ceased to exist. The radio silence that followed was deafening. The Dnipro swallowed everything: the steel, the fuel, the pride. For Moscow, the bridge wasn't just gone, it had been erased from history. By 4:10 a.m., the Dnipro River had become a furnace. The Kharkovka Bridge, 7 miles of reinforced concrete and Russian pride, no longer existed. In its place was a crater of molten steel, glowing at 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to melt armor. Over 700 Russian troops and 420 vehicles, including 28 ammunition trucks and 16 fuel carriers, vanished in a fireball equal to 450 tons of TNT. Among the wreckage, at least 32 tanks completely destroyed and another 18 irreparably damaged. A crippling loss to Moscow's armored capability on that front. Satellites from NASA and the European Space Agency logged it as one of the largest non-nuclear blasts in Eastern Europe since World War II. But the explosion didn't just destroy a bridge, it detonated diplomacy. For weeks, both sides had pretended to honor a false ceasefire, while Russia quietly moved weapons under the cover of peace. The convoy was never logistical. It was Moscow's bargaining chip, its proof of power for the US-mediated peace summit in Geneva. When the bridge went up in flames, the illusion collapsed with it. At the very moment Russian envoys prepared to sign the peace accord, the blast hit the headlines first. By dawn, the summit was dead. And so was Russia's leverage. Ukraine had rewritten the rules of negotiation in blood and light, sending a message that echoed worldwide. You cannot negotiate peace with a gun pressed to your head. The shockwave reached far beyond the battlefield. North Korea canceled its next artillery shipment. Iran froze all Shahed 136 drone exports to avoid detection. Within BRICS, India and Brazil condemned Moscow's reckless weaponization of diplomacy, while China called for strategic restraint. The blast didn't just break a bridge, it fractured Russia's political alliances and exposed its weakness to the world. For Kiev, this was more than a strike. It was a $10,000 operation that dismantled a $5 billion strategy. As the fires faded over the Dnipro, one truth remained. Arrogance is the heaviest weapon of all, and it always destroys the hand that wields it.